Welcome back to 7th Grade Mustache. On today's episode, we'll be speaking about weaponized perception. Word, sound, power. 3 words spoken together that describes the transformative nature of our reality. In Buddhist belief systems, sound is considered to be sacred. Sound, communicated through music and poetry, is thought to have the ability to cleanse emotional energies of the body. Sound, by way of speech, is understood to be a doorway to the energetic dimensions, which is represented as vibrations or prana, life force energy. These sacred acts come together to support the mantra, also known as a prayer or divine utterance. In chanting, sacred mantras are repeated rhythmically in succession out loud. Mantras have the capacity to benefit those who are chanting them, as well as benefiting all living beings, since the energy of the sounds moves outward infinitely. Chanting mantras helps to heal the body, protect the mind, and manifest human desires by connecting the person who is chanting with the divine. Through chanting, people that are engaged in it can travel to the innermost places within themselves, and it is a theme that is popularized by Vietnamese Buddhist Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. Paramahansa Yogananda once said, "Singing is a divine art, and devotional chanting is the highest form of this art because it leads to attunement with cosmic vibration." In his book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, he draws on the similarities of the Om in the Hindu scriptures and the Word in the Bible of Christianity. When you look at the Bible of Christianity, it says, "In the beginning, there was the Word, and the Word created everything." That right there tells you words have power. The Tetragrammaton is the name of God that is written in 4 Hebrew letters. It first appears in the Talmud. But this word, when spoken, has tremendous power. But let's take a look at the connective tissue between intention, manifestation, and manipulation. Word substitution can change the way you view a situation. You can simply change out one word that offends with a word that is more vague and deflectionary. This happens a lot with doublespeak. We had an entire episode devoted just to that, and it was shadow banned to oblivion. If you can find that show, you need to listen to it because it really digs down into how really bad things can be sanitized with words that bore people to death. When business practices and laws control your response to those situations with a focused intent, that is a form of manipulation. Problematic supply chains are part of the weaponized perception problem. Several examples are cotton, coffee, chocolate, sugar, rubber, and conflict minerals or conflict diamonds, but especially the conflict minerals that are used in circuit boards, computers, and cell phones. Labor exploitation and perceptual constructs are at the heart of these industries. People have enabled these problematic supply chains for centuries and have given very little thought to the people who are actually making these materials, mining these materials, processing these materials, and the conditions that they live and work under. Food auditing evolved from a series of lawsuits around E. coli and other health safety issues. Those audits are more effective when the auditor is native to the country where the audit is happening. But when the auditor is not native to the country, it is easy for them to miss labor violations. The audits are prearranged, and local law enforcement is not involved as a consequence of the violations. See, it is possible to be a victim and an illusion enabler. Apathy is part of what makes you an enabler. The "I don't care, not my problem, it doesn't affect me" mentality. You see a label like fair trade, and you don't question the company any further. Human capital management. That is a fancy way of scheduling employees at big chain stores. This is also referred to as just-in-time scheduling. This brings to mind the methods used by Amazon at their warehouses. The way they make employees wear devices to monitor movement and track efficiency, and reports to a management system when the person picking them in the warehouse is not walking in the right direction. They get a beep or a vibration on this device they're wearing to let them know they're not walking in the right direction. Many of these jobs don't pay a living wage to cover one's cost of living. That necessitates a second job. The just-in-time scheduling would not create the schedule until the last minute, preventing people with plans, goals, or even families to plan life events around the schedule that is meant to exploit their free time. Once again, apathy is part of what makes you an enabler. Excuse me. You don't care until it's too late. You don't care until it's affecting you. Once it becomes a problem in your life, now you really care about it. But it's too late at that time. Now, extrapolate that out to millions of people that don't care. You have a weaponized perception mechanism that allows just-in-time scheduling on a job site and transforming human workforce into a lab rat, ant farm workforce.
They've been doing that shit for a while. It's not Korea. They were talking about like Sri Lanka or someplace. You're only allowed to walk one direction. Like when you're literally, you're walking on the right side of the street, and if you turn around and go back, it uses facial recognition software to either take money out your account or find you those social points. And like I said, with this all this bullshit right here, where you can't even work a second job because you can't even plan for it. You literally have a minute notice of when they want you to work.
Labor violations are a big problem, and these labor violations are part of this larger mechanism to maximize profits. And then the tech industry got involved, and they began using data. I once went to a barbecue with a person that I know, and she was getting married to this guy. And this was when big data was like really starting to take off, and he was talking about it at the barbecue, and he was just so fucking excited. And I said, explain to me what big data is. I said, because it's a collection of everything you do and touch that has a digital footprint. Oh, no, it's not that. It's that. I said, oh, wait. You're trying to sanitize what I just said. You are part of the problem. See, she and him are people that I would classify as early adopters. They grab on to new technology as soon as it comes out and absorb it into their life, and they don't think anything bad about it. There are these people who have all these devices and these people who are these illusion enablers that are helping to create this Internet of Things.
Okay, why do you think people can't see the future anymore? Look, my mom's had strokes. Sometimes she has a problem, like mine, that can go bad. There are literally people that can't see anything negative about stuff. Or like, we all joke about it. We grew up watching The Terminator. Why the fuck do we need AI? I'll give you an example. So when I was in Tennessee this last time, me and my mom opened up an account together. And the banker is telling me about her son, and I told her about my son. And she's like, well, how can you relate? Your son passed, yada, yada, yada. And she was talking about her son, like when she tells him to do something, if he doesn't believe her, he'll log on and ask AI the question, how many gallons of gas does a car have, that kind of thing. And she's like, I just explained it to him. And it's like he doesn't trust her to give him the answer. Or I'm like, that is a person who he just doesn't have an identity. He literally is looking for authority and doesn't see his parents as having an authority. So that's that AI. What I'm saying is, why would you ask AI a question in the first place? I don't get it. I mean, there's certain times when it's useful, but people act like AI is God. AI hasn't made a decision. AI hasn't done anything. And why would you trust somebody who's only 3 or 4 years old to make a decision for you?
What the problem is that the problem I have with this is, okay, why do you have to create these small-scale nuclear power plants to control this stuff? Why don't you make it more efficient? Like, you're telling me, okay, we got this car that runs on, that only has 5 miles per gallon. We'll make a car that is not so shitty on fuel efficiency. You're telling me that you have to create nuclear power plants to run this thing? That shit sounds like a fucking cop-out. That sounds like the biggest psyop ever. So either the people who want to build this stuff really don't know, or they do know that they're being used to make this stuff, to create a situation where you have more nuclear power plants than ever. 100 times more than ever. And that is fucking dangerous.
Look, how come they ain't fix the shit where there's no waste from it? We're talking about more efficient. We're talking about AI. How come AI hasn't solved that problem yet? Just ask it. Hey, how can we use nuclear energy that doesn't produce a waste product? Or how do we use the waste product more efficiently?
Or just make a more efficient model of AI that doesn't require so much electricity to run, because that's not efficient, man.
When you talked about them being early adopters,
those are the worst kind of people ever. Those are what they call a YIMBY. Yes, in my backyard.
When Denzel was talking about back in the day, the news had to be accurate. Now you just want to be first. Being first is not its own reward. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the idea of letting an artificial entity control you and tell you what's best doesn't make sense to me. Second, how about this? Like whenever I hear this AI talking, they'll mispronounce something. Somebody use AI and they're doing a video and the AI is talking, and they'll say a word wrong, and I'm like, that doesn't bother anybody. Like, you literally sit here and this thing can't figure out how to say chrysanthemum, or All
right, listen, I can always tell when there's some AI-ish thing going on. I can always, in the movie Blade Runner, there was called the blush test, where you could tell where between a human and an android. But I can tell right now whether it's AI video, AI music. I can tell whether there's an AI speaker giving a voiceover to something that's a YouTube video or something online. I can always tell, because it's not the pacing that they're speaking, it's the inflection points that are not correct. And they'll have some that you're like, oh, that's an old black man they have reading something. No, it's not. That's not a person.
They use Morgan Freeman's voice a lot. They use Joe Rogan's voice a lot. And when Joe Rogan's talking, there's a certain cadence. All of a sudden, this thing is just like, well, on Thursday, 45 minutes ago, it just rattles off.
No, but see, there's a rhythm to the way he speaks. And even when he's ranting on something, there's still a rhythm to the way he speaks. And you can tell, all right, well, that's not the rhythm that he speaks with.
But also, they're hijacking my credibility by using my voice. And when I say my, I mean Rogan or anybody else, Morgan Freeman. They're literally hijacking your credibility, because if that was the case, why don't they just use a Cylon voice or Darth Vader voice? No, they use the voice of somebody who, and there are a few people out there that can't tell that this is AI, and they'll believe it, or they'll run with the story, and that kind of stuff.
So I'm going to go back to doublespeak for a second and talk about that, because I want to show you examples of how they can sanitize language. So here's some examples. There are no potholes in the streets of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just pavement deficiencies. The Reagan administration didn't propose any new taxes, just revenue enhancement through new user fees. Here's another one. Those aren't bums on the street, just non-goal-oriented members of society. This whole thing about the unhoused, stop doing that. Don't call them that. They're homeless. They don't have a fucking home. You know what I'm saying? The unhoused. Like, you're sanitizing. This sanitization of language comes from both sides. And it's all about how it's benefiting whoever is doing the speaking.
And what about the fact if words don't get used enough, they remove it from the dictionary? What about that shit? Like, who decides that? How does that work? But literally, if a word percentage goes down by so many percentage points, it doesn't appear in the language. It literally gets removed from the dictionary now, and that is an AI task. And so there are words that have specific meanings, and there are words that have more artistic or more elaborate meanings. And yeah, and you want to just do away with them because you don't think people are using them enough. Like I said, the decisions are being made for us by an inferior product. This AI is not better than us. It's not smarter than us.
Benign neglect is an attitude or policy of ignoring an often delicate or undesirable situation that one is held to be responsible for or dealing with. Benign neglect is something that people should be aware of because the federal government has been responsible for benign neglect when it comes to people of color that they have wronged.
They wrong people, but they don't want to give them reparations, or they don't want to pay them or give them free education or housing or something to that nature. They don't want. In labor law, we call that make whole, make somebody whole again. You know, I violated you, I cost you a job, I cost you points, so I have to make you whole. And that's the issue, is that these violations are not being fixed.
Most of the time, you will recognize doublespeak when you see it or hear it. But if you have any doubts, you can identify doublespeak by just answering these questions. Who is saying what to whom? Under what conditions and circumstances? With what intent? And with what results? Answering these questions will usually help you identify a doublespeak language that appears to be legitimate or that at first glance doesn't even appear to be doublespeak. So, there are at least 4 kinds of doublespeak. The first is the euphemism, an inoffensive or positive word or phrase used to avoid a harsh, unpleasant, or distasteful reality. But a euphemism can be a tactful word or phrase which avoids directly mentioning a painful reality, or it can be an expression used out of concern for the feelings of someone else, or to avoid directly discussing a topic or subject to a social or cultural taboo.
There are times when it's necessary not to offend somebody, or maybe to dumb it down a little bit, but there's other times where honesty is necessary so people can have accurate assessment of the situation or who they are. Like, there's a lot of, back in the day, if you called somebody dumb, you know, they might be offended, but they would think about their actions. Nowadays, you call somebody dumb, they just get pissed and want to fight. Like, no, how do you correct your behavior if nobody's honest with you about your limitations? You can't get better, you can't improve. So it's necessary to tell people, like, hey, you're not, I want to be a lawyer. That's not your, now you can prove me wrong, or you can lean into it and realize that what we already knew. You're limited at best, bro. Sis.
A second kind of doublespeak is jargon, the specialized language of a trade, profession, or a group, such as those used by doctors, lawyers, engineers, educators, car mechanics, and the like. Jargon can serve an important and useful function. Within a group, jargon functions as a kind of verbal shorthand that allows members of the group to communicate with each other and clarify efficiently and quickly ideas. It is a mark of membership in the group to be able to use and understand the group's jargon. But this is something that kids pick up very quickly in high school and junior high school with slang or nicknames for things. Jargon, like the euphemism, can also be doublespeak. It can and often is pretentious, obscure, and esoteric in its terminology, and it's used to give an air of authority and prestige to the speakers. Jargon, as doublespeak, often makes the simple appear complex.
Yep.
The ordinary profound. The obvious insightful. In this sense, it is used not to express but to impress. With such doublespeak, the act of smelling something becomes organoleptic analysis. Glass becomes fused silicate. A crack in a metal support beam becomes a discontinuity.
A blemish.
Lawyers, for example, speak of involuntary conversion of property when discussing the loss or destruction of property through theft, accident, or condemnation.
That's sad.
Involuntary conversion. Just say he stole shit, dude. Like, why do you gotta jargonize it?
Well, the thing about jargon is, it's meant to confuse, and it's usually a technical speak. You know, a lot of, well, you need a 44 millimeter.
But it's also used to impress.
Yeah. Well, hold it. It's not just used to impress, but it's also used. When I say confusion, a lot of people don't understand the jargon, but they'll nod their head like, "Oh, I got that."
Okay,
and they
stop. Without going into detail, do you or do you not have direct experience arguing at work on behalf of other people, having to slice through jargon in rules or the disruption of rules? Yes or no?
Yeah, every day. Well,
but do you see how jargon and doublespeak in your line of work in the past has been used against people?
Yeah, it creates confusion. What it does is make them not want to read the agreement. The agreement is what dictates between the company and the organization.
Because they are relying on that law, those written agreements, to be the foundation of their power.
But go back to what you said about the jargon part. They'll add stuff to it and people don't understand it. And they literally say, "Oh, I don't get it." Or they say, "Well, I need you to decipher." And I'm like, yeah. Certain agreements were written for interpretation on purpose. And literally in one of my other jobs, I was called a bulletin clerk, and I had to read the agreement. We would do something one way for 6 months, and then another 6 months we would do it differently. The agreement didn't change. It's the exact same words, but the words are so muddled or so technical, as you put it, that it's really hard to understand what they meant. But we'll do it this way for a while.
But that is being done on purpose.
Purpose, yeah. They literally
they could have simplified that document.
Yeah. They could have said, Thursday you can do this, this, and this. But instead they say you must pass up every 30 days or the shit is very jargon and very technical. And that also like I said, that literally drives people away from it.
What that is doing is keeping people's eye off the ball.
Nope. You are completely correct. No way people are going to participate. You even see it in church. Sometimes that Bible gets real preachy, but it's also hard to understand it because it's written in unrhymed blank verse. When Hillary begat Cecil begat.
But look at how long, for how many centuries, people believe the word of the Bible without being able to read it.
Yes. And they get the meaning of the words wrong, like literally get stuff wrong. And by doing that, that is a form of gatekeeping. Excuse me. That's what I wanted to say. That is a form of gatekeeping. Only the initiated will know what it says, and anybody else, they'll be sent in the wrong direction, or they'll get frustrated and not pursue it at all.
Is gobbledygook or bureaucratese. It's basically such a type of doublespeak is used for piling on words or overwhelming the audience with words. Be careful with that. Overwhelming the audience with words. You just spoke about documents, legal documents, that were so complex in their sentence structure and the use of the terminology that it confused the average educated reader. Now, if the average college-educated reader is struggling to parse the truth in a basic document, that's done to confuse. That is gobbledygook that's piled in there.
I think the toughest part for people to understand is the more words you use does not mean that you say more. Does not give it more definition or more validity. But again, people will pile on extra words, 10 extra words, and sometimes it's poetic license. Sometimes it's for entertainment purpose. But when it comes to technical manuals, when it comes to agreements, when it comes to when it comes to the Bible, you should be able to decipher it for yourself. And well, when the Bible, you should be listening your own opinion or own meaning of the words. But when it comes to, like I said, work, it should be cut and dry. And like I said, a lot of times when you go to a hearing, that's what you deal with. People think the more words you use, that doesn't give you more validity. That doesn't make you more of anything, especially if you use the words out of context.
Alan Greenspan used to be the chair of President Richard Nixon's Council of Economic Advisors. He was quoted in the Philadelphia Inquirer in 1974 as having testified before Senate in front of a committee that is, in his words, he says, "It is a tricky problem to find a particular calibration in timing that would be appropriate to stem the acceleration and risk premiums created by falling incomes without prematurely aborting the decline in the inflation-generated risk premiums." Wow. That motherfucker right there just went before the Senate and said, "I'm going to say some real slick shit directly to you, and I'm going to see if you catch it." Now, Greenspan's language has not changed since then. Speaking to the meeting of the Economic Club of New York in 1988, he said, well, at that point, he was the head of the Federal Reserve. He said, "I guess I should warn you, if I turn out to be a particularly clear person, you probably misunderstood what I've said." Damn. His doublespeak doesn't even seem to have controlled the direction of his career. Sometimes gobbledygook may sound impressive, but when the quote is later examined in print, it doesn't even make sense. Hold on, wait. During the 1988 presidential campaign, vice presidential candidate Dan Quayle explained the need for strategic defense initiative by saying, "Why shouldn't an enhancement deterrent, a more stable peace, a better prospect to denying the ones who enter conflict in the first place, to have a reduction of offensive systems and an introduction to defense capability? I believe this is the route the country will eventually go." Dude, hold on a second. You're in a debate and the American public is listening to you and you want to just drop all this gobbledygook? You are clearly full of shit. But these are all lawyers. All these guys are lawyers. The investigation into the Challenger disaster in 1986, something that we lived through, revealed the doublespeak of gobbledygook and bureaucratese used by too many involved in the shuttle program. When Jesse Moore, NASA's associate administrator, was asked if the performance of the shuttle program had improved with each launch, or if it had remained the same, he said, I think our performance in terms of the liftoff performance and in the terms of the orbital performance, we knew more about the envelope we were operating under, and we have been pretty accurately staying in that. And so I would say the performance has not, by design, drastically improved. I think we have been able to characterize the performance more as a function of our launch experience as opposed to it improving as a function of time. While this language may appear to be jargon, a close look will reveal that it really is just gobbledygook, laced with jargon. But you really have to wonder, if he had any idea what he was saying. Okay, so having worked for the federal government and being around people like this, I can tell you that this use of jargon and gobbledygook, this is done to mostly out of cowardice because nobody wants to accept responsibility for their actions. And so they won't speak directly. They won't talk directly. They talk around shit.
Yeah, how about this? When it was Greenspan, then the other chick, there was a chick that was kind of in the same position, and this guy was telling me that she was a genius, and he was also telling me, oh, Alan Greenspan is a genius. I'm like, oh. So I'm younger, so I go to listen to a speech, and I'm like,
who told you that
dude.
He was a genius?
So this guy I worked with, he was a boss. He became a director, and he was talking about it was some proposal that Greenspan had made. This is years ago. And mind you, my degree is in economics and finance. So I'm like, well, maybe I need to go check this guy out. Like, Feldman. I like Feldman. He's a jerk. I get he's whatever he is, but he's honest when it comes to this finance thing. He's not trying to trick anybody. He's not trying to do the double speak or talk over you. And his biggest basis, he's big on laissez-faire, like real laissez-faire, not this fake capitalism where you manipulate politicians and things like that. Yep. He's big on the free market. But again, when I tell you this Greenspan guy, I don't think he's a genius. I think that guy was just saying it because he didn't understand it. And that it gets to be annoying, but it also, like you said before, it confuses people. They don't question anything. It messes a lot of stuff up, and they fall for it every time because you don't understand what somebody's saying doesn't mean they're saying something profound at all.
The fourth kind of doublespeak is inflated language. It is designed to make the ordinary seem extraordinary, to make everyday things seem impressive, to give an air of importance to people, situations, or things that would not normally be considered important, to make the simple complex. Often this kind of doublespeak isn't hard to spot. It is usually pretty funny. While car mechanics may be called automotive internists, elevator operator members of the Vertical Transportation Corps, and used car pre-owned or experienced cars and black and white television sets described as having non-multicolor capability. However, you may have trouble figuring out that when Chrysler initiates a career alternative enhancement program, it usually involves laying off 5,000 workers. Or that negative patient care outcome means the patient die.
That's real.
Negative patient care outcome.
That's serious. They literally candy coat shit because they don't want to get sued. They don't care about you or how it affects you. So let's not tell them the truth. Let's lie. Let's euphemize people. I can't even say medical. I can't even talk about medical stuff anymore. So no, that is a major problem.
Well, it's dangerous. Doublespeak is not the product of carelessness or sloppy thinking. Most doublespeak is the product of clear thinking, and is carefully designed and constructed to appear to communicate when in fact it doesn't. It is language designed not to lead, but to mislead. It's language designed to distort reality and corrupt thought. And so that is part of the reason why weaponized perception is dangerous, because word, sound, power. When you are speaking these words, you are creating pictures in the minds of people. These pictures are concepts, and they attach their belief system to these ideas. And either they will enforce it or they will fight against it. But again, that is why I come back to the usefulness of chanting, the usefulness of prayer, the usefulness of protecting oneself with positive spoken word. It's possible to live in your head a lot, to not speak your ideas. There's people who live these lives of quiet desperation because they can't get out all these things they have in their head. And sometimes people don't have a way to communicate. They're not good at communicating these things. And so all this builds up and it becomes a crash. It becomes a avalanche inside their mind. And people start to spiral. And so they reach for things that'll give them ease. And they do that more and more and more until it becomes dis-ease when organs fail or tissue breaks down in the body. And dis-ease starts to form. Which is why it's so important to cleanse the body. To not just, bathe yourself every day and brush your teeth every day and comb your hair and all that, but to exercise. Exercising cleans the inside of the body, cleans your circulation. And where the blood goes, life force goes, ki, chi, prana, that's where it goes. It moves wherever the blood is flowing. You want the blood flowing all through your body, strong all the time, with a strong heart pumping this all the time. But you don't get a strong heart sitting around. You get a strong heart by working that heart, by pressuring it, putting it under pressure to work, to perform, so that when you're relaxed, your resting state is so low, it doesn't require a lot of energy expenditure, but you can go spike back up to that high level with just a thought and stay there for as long as you need, so long as you taper back off and rest again. Doing this on a regular basis is exercise. You got to ask yourself, how often do you sweat? How often do you really sweat and clean yourself out? You still going for those walks?
Yeah, no. So, I'm still walking. I just started back 2 days ago because, I've been working this overtime. So yesterday and the day before, I was walking. But the reason sweating is so important is because, especially when it comes to those microplastics, people want to talk about cholesterol and stuff like that when it comes to heart attacks and strokes. But the truth of the matter is when they open these people up and they do these autopsies, they're full of plastic. Microplastics are what's clogging these arteries up. It's not cholesterol. When people die of these different things, your cholesterol is elevated. So that's when they try to tell you, oh, stop eating cholesterol. Cholesterol is necessary. Cholesterol feeds your brain. It is important to all the functions of the body. But these microplastics, I ain't got time for that. And so sweating is important to get those microplastics out your system.
That's fucking wild. It's wild because then, so they talk about you consume a credit card's worth of plastic a year.
A year, that's so crazy.
Okay.
We hope it's not true, but...
so over 10 years, you've got 120 credit cards inside you. You know what I'm saying? Either you're sweating that out, you're shitting it out, you're getting it out of your body. You have to be getting this stuff out of your body. I think part of the problem is it's always in there because we keep consuming more. But if you go to a place where there aren't any plastics, at some point you're going to cleanse this out of your body. Like say you go to the country and you're in the country for just like 30 days and you're drinking well water from glasses. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say it again, from glasses, not plastic cups, glasses. You're drinking out of glass. And you're cooking your food that's not in plastic. And you're purposely avoiding all plastic. Well, in 30 days, you should be able to detoxify yourself from this. Because the body cleanses itself over the course of 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year. You've created an entirely new body. The removal of not just microplastics, but invasive thoughts. Dude, I gotta tell you, there are times where I'm just sitting alone and I can feel transmissions beamed at me. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about like just beamed like in the ether. You know what I'm saying? Like this negative shit. And I'm like, hold on, man. This is not coming from inside my mind. There's times where I can detect things that are coming from outside my mind. I'm like, and when I'm talking about, this isn't spiritual discernment. This is something else. This feels almost like a technological thing. So that's the tough part for a lot of people, is figuring out, hold on, is it spiritual? Is this technological? Is this even coming from inside my mind? Is it coming from outside my mind? So there are patents that were been approved that allowed for MK Ultra to be encapsulated into a WAV file, into music, right? And so how they could basically send these messages through walls on a subsonic frequency.
We talked about that incident in Cuba where they're using ultrasonics and all kinds of different stuff to beam stuff into people's heads. Or how about this? You alluded to it earlier. It's very important for you not to listen to some of this jargon. It's very important for you to do your own research and decide how you feel about stuff, because they'll bombard you with everybody saying the same thing. How crazy is it when you have all these politicians saying the exact same speech, or you have all these media, these newscasts saying the exact same thing? That is to beat you over the head and make you agree with them. That is to confuse you. That is to make that fake shit a reality.
That is for you to help to enable the illusion and hold up the construct of this false reality that we have been indoctrinated and entrained into. Entrainment is a word you need to learn. Entrainment. Not entertainment, entrainment, which can be both sometimes. But U.S. Patent S647-02-14. It was created in the year 2000, and it is for a targeted energy weapon, a pulsated manipulation of the central nervous system, a method and device for producing a desired mental state based on the control of magnetic waves. There is a separate patent for the year 2000, the use of EMF, electromagnetic frequency waves, to induce a desired emotional state, sleeplessness, or sexual arousal. Now, how many times have people like heard something like Sexy Red, or, you know, any of these like music that's out now that sound like it has very little talent, but it's like there's something underneath it. That's this right here.
There's an underlying movement.
So in 2002, the U.S. Air Force received a patent for the remote projection of intelligible sound into a targeted consciousness, also known as voice-to-skull, V2K technology. A separate patent from November of 2013 entails the technique of controlling the brain state by placing engineered EMF patents into the AC electrical wiring of a building. That's a mind control building. That's insane, dude. The patent from 2014 is for the technique and technology that allows EMF control waves to be added to a musical file. There it is. That's what I just spoke about. There is another patent for ADS, Active Denial System, which is used as an invisible force to keep people inside an area. Think of concentration camps.
But here's the question. Why do we need some of this shit? I get the warfare aspect. I get the enemy. But some of this shit, such as AI or what you said, Skull 2, V2K, some of this shit is not necessary. So you're doing it for the sake of doing it, not because it's going to make the world a better place, enhance humanity. None of that shit. It's all bullshit. And for some reason, people still go down that road anyway. The term you used the other day was gaytheist. And a lot of these guys are gaytheists. They have no desire to have children. They don't believe
anything.
Any
They have no faith
well,
whatsoever in
well, technically
anything.
that's a nihilist that doesn't believe in anything. But it's just the fact that these
But
people,
they have no spiritual life whatsoever.
no, but they clothe themselves in biblical identity, and that's how they gain trust, or they gain notoriety and things like that. And I think it's really important to recognize that some things that should not be done. We don't have to go down that road. We don't have to. I ain't got to eat shit to know I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't need it. Don't like the way it smells. But there are people that will test that theory, and like, yeah, maybe it ain't that bad. Like, no, I don't need to know if it's bad or good. I just know it's not right, and I don't want none.
Peter Thiel, whenever you see him, that motherfucker is sweating. He's sweating constantly all the time. He's sweating constantly because he's wearing fake skin. Okay, that motherfucker is a Zorg wearing some fake skin of whatever it is that's covering whatever he is underneath.
Parasite. Like Men in Black. He's just wearing a skin suit.
Yep, exactly. But people like him and these people in these tech companies, they're part of this like new movement of people who will like go to these retreats and they'll sit. They're basically like just go to jail, which is basically they sit in a that box they put you in, solitary confinement.
Yep.
And they sit in there and they're like somebody gives you food to like a hole in the wall, and they say like they get all this information download. No, motherfucker, like you in there with a demon because you don't believe in shit, and you're trying to bring these motherfuckers back into reality because they're jealous of human beings and they're jealous of the lives that we have because we can eat pizza and have sex and make music and drive cars fast and jump out of airplanes and have fun. And they can't do none of that.
If you don't think that having sex was such a big deal, then why do we have Nephilim? You dig what I'm saying? Clearly, they was not getting it on up in heaven, and all of a sudden they come down here like, shit, this pussy good as a motherfucker. And next thing you know, we got a giant. You're the life of the party, pal.
But that's something that people don't factor in. So one thing that annoys me is that everybody thinks it's all about this story that the Zorgs have put forward. You know what I'm saying? Like the Zorgs and in their book of arguments and all this stuff, and how they completely psyoped black Christians into thinking that black people were created after they were.
Yes.
That shit blows my mind every time. I call bullshit, Mr. Handman, whenever I hear that. I'm like, hold up. So Africa was here, and then y'all was here, and then we were created after y'all were created? You got me fucked up.
But they get away with it because of jargon. They get away with it because of doublespeak. They get away with it because they have authority, and but
see that's the whole thing. But it's also gaslighting, because they want you to think that Shem was created because of somebody's mistake.
Okay, so he's talking about the curse of Ham. Well, the reason the white folks like quoting that is because they're saying that because of Shem did something, he is supposed to be serving Shem for the rest of his life, and they're saying that him is the black people and Shem are the white people. But here's the crazy part. Old boy's breaking this down the other day, and I've watched this video like 100 times, but I didn't understand I wasn't old enough to understand what was being said. My mind didn't work yet. And so he says, where does it talk about the curse of him in the Bible? And nobody can say it. Yeah, it doesn't. It comes from the Talmud. And then once I heard it comes from the Talmud, then I knew, like, okay, this is some bullshit. This is
the crazy part. So are you saying this one black guy, or like all black people?
All black people. They're saying all black people. But
I'm
again,
like, hold on.
But hold on. You left out one really important part. White folks don't even read the Talmud. So, but they knew to quote it. So somebody along the line, Judah Benjamin. If you don't know who Judah Benjamin is,
that cracker. That was a Klan member. That was hiding out amongst white people.
Well, no. Slow down. He was one of the founding members of the Klan, from what I understood. He was Jewish. They knew who he was. In fact, when they kicked him out of America, he took the cotton and took it to Europe, made money on the cotton, and then they come back with robes. But I digress. What I'm simply saying is that story comes from the Talmud. It's not in the Torah. It's not in the New Testament. But everybody seems to be able to quote that. Oh, Shem did this and Ham did this, and so Ham is beholding to Shem forever.
What people don't realize, though, is the Talmud is not a holy book.
It's not biblical at all. It's nothing but it's a bunch of lawyers
arguments.
And these are like lawyers like arguing over a law, interpretation of law, which is the same thing we talked about earlier.
Of interpretations. So this is not God's word.
But this is just like we talked about with those agreements, how they're written, that they're sometimes subject to interpretation, where these guys, well, at one point in time, a bunch of rabbis sat down and argued a bunch of facts. And when you read the Talmud, like they're having sex with 9-year-olds and they're marrying people at 10 and 12 years old. Yeah, it's some fucked up shit in there. But these are the things they talked about. These are the things that they argued. And somewhere along the line, there is a curse in there. But again, my point being is white folks were quoting that, but it was not in the Bible. It was in the Talmud. And I'm like, so where did you get it from? Who told you? Who broke it down to you? And it's funny how when they told you, you agreed with it. You were all in on that motherfucker.
You didn't push back at all.
Nope. there was, as you said before, this is the hill you want to die on? Yeah, the motherfuckers was like, we're all in on this slavery thing. And it's biblical at that. It's not in the Bible, but it's biblical. That's some bullshit. Oh, that's what it is.
But a lot of this is just deception. Deception through ambiguity, deception, advertising. It's all these different ways of deceiving people. And to remember, deception through ambiguity is commonly considered intentional, while ambiguity is often excused as unintentional. Ambiguity decreasing deceptions cause the enemy decision maker to be especially certain and very wrong. You see that? It's making the enemy decision maker certain but very wrong. Do you understand the difference? Certain but wrong. They're convinced. They're convinced that they're right, but they're wrong.
They have no clue. Some people have no clue they're being manipulated.
But we just talked about Shem and Ham, and how deception is the act of hiding the truth to give yourself an advantage, to persuade someone to make a detrimental decision, to force your opponent to make the action or to fail to make the action.
I think what people don't get is that some people have made their mind up. It's much easier. It takes two people to lie. And it's a lot easier to lie to somebody who wants to believe something. And people wanted to believe that, we're justifying slavery. I won't go to hell, yada, yada, yada. Goodbye, God bless. But the fact of the matter is that story was bullshit, but it's much easier to lie when somebody wants to be lied to.
There's things you can look for in these deceptions. I mean, we talked about these forms of doublespeak, and within it, there's jargon and gobbledygook. But there's examples of where you can look for deception, real-world deception examples. Military deception, police and prosecutorial deception,
espionage
operations, unconscious processing, difficulty in detection, long-term consequences. Military forces use ambiguity-decreasing deception to make false ideas or give you a false sense about their intentions or plans, and this can lead adversaries to make incorrect assumptions, delaying or paralyzing their reactions. Law enforcement and prosecutors may employ ambiguity-decreasing deception during interrogations or investigations to extract false confessions or manipulate subject statements. There's undercover operations where undercover agents use ambiguity-increasing deception to confuse people and create uncertainty among the targets, making it harder for them to discern reality from fiction. Donnie Brasco. Subtlety. So using subtlety, which is deception through ambiguity, often relies on subtle cues, making it difficult to detect. How do you fight back against these types of deception? Well, there's mitigation strategies. A very important one is critical thinking. Develop skills to recognize and challenge ambiguous language or situations. Know how to think about these things, critically analyze it, and go back to what the doublespeak was saying is who is saying it, what is the intention, and who are they speaking to. Next, you can verify information. Seek clarification or corroboration to reduce uncertainty.
Find trusted sources.
Third, monitor for subtlety. Be aware of subtle cues and inconsistencies that may indicate deception. Small things that give things away. Like I was saying about AI and how I can see and hear the shiver, the fakeness. If you look, you can see it. It's like when a person's lying to you and they're in front of you, you can kind of tell. Encourage transparency. Foster open communication and transparency to reduce opportunities for ambiguity-based deception. By understanding the complexities of deception through ambiguity, individuals and organizations can better navigate and mitigate its effects, ultimately promoting more informed decision-making and ethical interactions. Why are these important now? Because the Zorgs are in the news, once again, trying to get people to get behind them to fight a war with a very old and ancient civilization that they want to control that area. And they are trying to get people behind their guy that they have put in office, the orange-faced guy. And on top of that, you have AI that's fighting hard to get a foothold in our governments and in our minds to control what we think and what we see and what we feel to help make the technocracy real. All these things are important. A weaponized perception is dangerous, but you can cleanse yourself, cleanse your mind with a chant. You can chant the Creator's name. You can speak the word Om. Every time I say the name of my hometown, I speak that word. The first part of it is the word. The second half is the enlightenment. Om, aha, Om, aha. So I'm saying, when I speak this word, I say, the creative word, yes, I remember who I am. The creative word, yes, I remember who I am. Ain't that fucking crazy?
It's amazing that how you break down the words and the etymology and all this stuff. Yeah, that's deep. That's some deep shit.
I mean, yes, it's a Native American word, but in speaking that word, there's the word sound power. Look, I'm just telling you, there is a new level of warfare attacking people, and you got to know how to fight. And each week, we bring you new kung fu skills and techniques for you to go back to your school and practice and spar and make real. Everything that we bring to you, you can go out there and test it and see if it's legit. Look, that's all I got. We out. Peace.
All back.